All right, greetings everybody. This is Steve with Electric Michigan again, kind of doing a recap of the weekend. John and I probably rode together about 100-ish miles last day or so. I probably put in maybe 25 on his Metacycle. And these are just some of my thoughts. I mean, basically this is like a what could have been for this bike. If this really could exist and you could still buy them, I think it'd be pretty perfect for what it's supposed to be, which is a commuter bike for people around town. There's a lot of flaws with it, but at least they were trying to do something different. But unfortunately at this point, let's be honest, it looks like Sondors is probably going to be going out of business. Lots of people are not going to get their money back. It sucks. Jonathan was actually able to get his bike, which is awesome. So the big thing, the hub motor for around town, having this unsprung weight doesn't seem to matter that much. But once you get on a fast highway, anything over 50 miles per hour, you really feel that this is just back here. It feels like you're just smashing into the smallest bumps on the road. There's a lot of stuff that's over-engineered that didn't need to be here if the intent was to try to lower cost. So like this console thing that's right here, whatever this is, would have been much more effective just as lockable storage rather than trying to have this wireless charging pad and the key fob in here. You don't need a key fob, just a regular key everyone would have been happy with. This whole space right here, I think people would have been thrilled if the storage compartment ever came out as an option. It didn't need to really be there like that. It was compelling to have this big open space on the bike. The whole frame, I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be cool and futuristic. They probably could have achieved the same thing with just some tube steel and, galvanized steel or painted it or something. But, there's only maybe a couple thousand of these in existence, and Jonathan's cool enough to have one of them. The bike really does get up to speed pretty nice. I mean, it's got a fairly small motor in it, and it was pretty cool actually getting it up to 70 miles an hour. It doesn't pull like the Zero, obviously, but it's not supposed to. This is more of a commuter bike for people in town. The whole chirping with the fob and everything is just incredibly unnecessary. Like, this bike is always trying to talk to you when it's doing something. Like, even now when I touch it, it's coming alive, even though it's not on. And, it doesn't need to do that. You should just have a key switch that's on or off. The controls honestly feel pretty good. I assume this is just some sort of stuff that's off the shelf in China. But everything up here feels great. If you're fortunate enough to ever get a hold of one of these, it's probably pretty easy to replace most of this stuff. The range, I was honestly very surprised with, positive. We did 65-ish miles yesterday, I would say, and we only convenience charged for maybe 45 minutes for the Metacycle, and it didn't really seem like that was even necessary. Like, we probably could have made it home. We were going pretty slow on kind of 35, 40 mile-ish hour roads, but it held up pretty well, and I was pretty happy. I really like how quiet this is compared to the DS. I mean, completely different bikes. This is a dual sport. This is just kind of a commuter scooter that's shaped like a motorcycle, but it is a lot of fun. And had the company been able to succeed at this price point, I think this would have been the perfect option for a lot of people. The handlebar brakes, that's fine. I would have preferred to have a right foot brake over here just so you could do things with your hands and hold the brake on, but it is what it is. It's fine at this price point. I like most things about this bike. The seat is just, there might as well not even have a seat. You might as well just be sitting on the polished aluminum frame. Talked about the hub motor. The battery is sort of, kind of, maybe removable, but at that point you need a couple tools, and it is what it is. Presumably if this had succeeded, there would have been better implementation of a removable battery. But at this point, it does look like Sondors is probably going out of business, and a lot of people are going to lose their money. But that's regardless of this bike being kind of like the exact niche that it was shooting for at the right price point. Unfortunately, like, most people aren't going to be able to get this. It does draw a lot of attention. Like, we've stopped a couple places, and people immediately pick up that this bike is electric. This one, not so much. They don't notice because it looks somewhat more traditional. This one, obviously, you notice there's nothing here. The charging, it would have been really nice if the charging brick, the charger itself, was actually integrated. But of course, they're just buying some sort of off-the-shelf Chinese charger and making it work with this. it's so heavy and big. I mean, if somebody were to try to steal your Metacycle, you could just throw the charger at them and attack them with it. To, you know, it's another security feature. What else, Jonathan?
I don't know. I mean, the DS is way more bike, you know, like that was what, after riding yours, like you just have way more top end. You got the added security if you get into like a weird traffic situation, that you've got more. Whereas the Sondors, like when you're up to speed, you're up to speed, and it didn't feel it doesn't feel unsafe to me, but
yeah, so
it's a bigger bike.
Of course, keeps pulling when you're going 50 and torque it, and it's just going to give you more power. You know, the motor is, I think, 3 times more powerful in the Zero versus this. But again, at the price point, you know, originally these were supposed to be selling for like $5,000, then it was like $6,000. You know, that's less than half of what I paid for this bike. So, you know, you and your partner could, in theory, could have had each a Metacycle, which would be pretty cool, rather than my bike. I wish this company had succeeded in making these, because I think it would have been pretty awesome. And, you know, I think I might have picked one up at one point just for having a fun little town bike. I wish that the passenger footbags had been integrated into this, that they'd kind of advertised, but you know, by the time that came around, they were already like on death's door, it seems like. Yeah. One
thing I found out that I didn't know was that when the brakes are engaged on the Metacycle, the motor is electronically disengaged. It's like you have the kill switch on.
Yeah, so a big safety issue, really.
Yeah.
If you're ever on a slight hill, you can't work the brake and the throttle at the same time. The throttle's just disconnected.
Yeah.
Huge issue even on pavement, but especially if you're trying to go uphill on gravel from a stop. Yeah, we ran into that a little bit on a hill, and it just seems like such an unnecessary design feature to include that. Like, why would you include that, you know, if you're trying to drive costs down? You don't need that. Kind of the same with the display here. Like, his display looks pretty cool, but it doesn't really ever tell you the information that you want to see. And everybody would have been happier with a cheaper display that actually told you things and had the triptych and the range just clearly displayed. But, you know, this was their first pass, and this is more or less like a low production or low run initial production vehicle.
Yeah, that was the main thing for me, was that brake thing. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me, but it's something that really, if you're at a stop sign on a hill and there's a car behind you, you know, it forces you to almost put it in sport mode, because I also found in normal mode, if it's too much of an incline, then the motor like safety's out. Okay. And so you know, I don't know, I don't like that. I don't know how hard it would be to figure out how to make, you know, just let me do it. I just need a let me do it mode. Like, yeah. So that's something to really keep an eye on, depending on where you live and where you're going to be driving, because that could get you in trouble pretty quick.
Yeah, if you're on sand or gravel or something. Any other thoughts, issues?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I felt like I didn't have a hard time keeping up with you. And I mean, again, we weren't, you know, we were just cruising. We were Saturday and Sunday cruising, so it wasn't like we were really trying to push it, but that felt good that it does what it said it wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm really happy with, honestly, for the price point and the motor and battery size on this, the range and the acceleration on it. Again, it's not supposed to be a Zero, but, you know, you could totally have fun like we did and ride together, and there's no issues. Like, this gets up to speed, it takes a few more seconds, it's got a little bit more gentle acceleration, but it definitely does what you want it to do. And it, you know, you can't really argue with the price point and, you know, kind of how cool and futuristic it is. The range was pretty great, like I was saying. Like, we were almost getting the same range with my 6-ish, 7-ish kilowatt hour battery. Had this ever really come to fruition, where you could have a supplemental battery in this compartment, which was kind of like advertised at one point, this thing would just be awesome with range. You could go forever, you know. I think the charger being external is very inelegant, but again, it's to drive costs down. And like I mentioned, there are those weird cost decisions, like why would you spend you know, hundreds of dollars trying to integrate a wireless charging pad and a key fob and this push button start when you could just have a key switch in a little storage box and everyone would be happy with it right there. And
Same with like the alarm.
the alarms are
The alarm's
annoying.
kind of odd. Like it's a weird. I don't know. I maybe just is my lifestyle, but yeah,
You know, so,
don't need to. I don't need it to squawk at me all the time.
yeah.
If anything, transporting it home, like I want to look into. Like, can I use my? You know, the Metacycle comes with like a battery key fob. I haven't looked into much of what it does, but I'm kind of hoping like, can I turn the battery off mechanically or some physically so that the bike doesn't try to wake up the whole way home in the back of the truck?
Right, so Jonathan's got it in the back of his truck, and the bike, it thinks it's being jostled like as a security feature, so it's constantly waking itself up, which
Yeah.
is quite annoying, right? And
But I'm afraid to plug that key fob in and mess with anything, because if it doesn't turn back on, I
Yeah.
can't get help.
Right, what do you do? So it's one of those things that's over-engineered. Like this bike is off and it stays off, and everybody's happy with it. And it's
Right.
on me to secure it. Like put a lock on it, right? I don't ask for it to come to life and pretend to do something if it thinks that there's a security issue, like someone's trying to steal my Zero. And that was just unnecessary to try and include that on here. And for his case, it's far more annoying than beneficial, right? Like if he's worried about it getting stolen or wheeled away somewhere, he's going to throw a lock on it, you know, chain it to something or put it in a garage somewhere. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, again, even though drawbacks, it's really cool what it could have been, right? Especially, you know, had Sondors succeeded and been able to just keep churning these out. We'd see them all over. We'd see modifications. We'd see different versions. We'd see, you know, longer seats, like aftermarket stuff. Right? You know, the few folks that are making aftermarket stuff, you got to wonder how many of those do they really sell, right? Because if there's a couple thousand of these in existence, they probably only sold a couple hundred of their aftermarket seats and their aftermarket storage boxes and stuff like that. So, yeah, could have been, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I think it's a cool bike for the price point. If you got your hands on one, that's awesome. Jonathan says he's going to keep his for the foreseeable future. Because why not? And he thinks there's, you know, if stuff were to go down, he's confident-ish that he could replace some of it. The thing for me I'd be worried about is some sort of like trivial software issue that somehow nerfs your thing, or, you know, trying to get a battery that actually fits correctly if this one has some sort of warranty issue. I don't exactly know how you'd replace that because it might not be the same size to fit in that position. But other than that, if you guys have questions or comments, you can throw them up in the section and we'll try to respond to them and, you know, see what you guys have any feedback. Again, you know, sorry to all those folks out there who have ordered those and are out $5,000-$6,000. Yeah, that just sucks. So good luck, everybody. Thanks for watching. This is a great bike that could have been. Hope everybody has a good summer that's left. And if you're in the market, I would always say try to go with this used Zero for the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 range. I've been very happy with this bike, even though it doesn't have all the features that this one does. Oh, including this one has reverse, which is awesome.
Yeah, that was handy. It is handy.
Yeah.
Even in town and parking spots and just little stuff. It is nice to not have to try to push.
Yeah, the Zero's
300
not perfect.
pounds.
And so even as long as the key is on my Zero, even if I've got the kill switch engaged, I'm fighting the regen braking, if you can believe that. So I have to turn the key off if I want to like back up a hill a little bit. So, and the Metacycle can move itself backwards at like half a mile an hour, which is very helpful. So, thanks everybody.
Yep.